Hey folks, welcome back to our Sky Tonight program. This is Seth Mayo again, curator of astronomy for the Lowman Planetarium at MOAS, and in this edition we're covering the dates of May 2nd through May 8th, 2022. We're going to start by providing again another planetary update in the evening sky and the morning sky as well. There's been a lot going on. Then we'll talk about the weekend for the Eta Aquarid's meteor shower peak that will be happening. We'll give you the details about that. And we'll end with a look at all the celestial highlights for the month of May. So let's get to it. Right at the beginning of this week on Monday, May 2nd, if you're looking very low in the west and northwest, just after the sun sets, you may have a chance to see a nice grouping of two solar system objects and a deep sky cluster that we had a chance to say farewell to a couple of episodes ago. So as we look right in this area here, you see the very thin crescent moon. It's pretty thin there, but it's really nice when it's at that phase. I love seeing that. And then just below it, you may notice the planet Mercury. So we have Mercury right here that actually recently reached its highest position in our western sky. It was greatest elongation east for it. And so Mercury is there. It's not always super bright. It's such a small planet and usually very close to the sun. So you usually have to compete with the glare of the sun, but sometimes it's high enough for you to see. What's also nice is not far from it is that beautiful Pleiades star cluster that you find right there. Like I said a couple episodes ago, we did kind of say farewell to it, but there's still a little more time to see it if you have really clear conditions towards the west after sunset and you have an unobstructed view. You might find this. So this could actually turn into a really nice photographic opportunity with a little bit of the sun's glow there just after sunset with that Pleiades star cluster, that beautiful open cluster, and then Mercury and the crescent moon. So it's always kind of fun to find these really interesting groupings in the sky. But as we've been talking about lately, that morning sky just before sunrise still provides an amazing opportunity to see all of those planets. There are 4 that we can see nicely in the east and southeast, all in a nice row, and they've been kind of moving around each other and kind of creating different configurations. If you recall from last week, very recently we had these 2 planets nearest the eastern horizon that were really close at conjunction. Now we have Venus nearest the eastern horizon and Jupiter there. They kind of swapped positions and they were really close. But even by Tuesday morning, May 3rd, they've already separated a good amount and they're moving pretty quickly away from each other, which is mostly due to Venus's much faster orbit than Jupiter's around the sun. And then we still have a chance to see Mars here and also Saturn a little higher up in the sky. If we move to the rest of the week, let's just pay attention to where these planets are. I'll turn on some planet labels just to kind of help us keep track of what's going on here. And we'll move ahead to Wednesday the 4th. I will say may the 4th be with you on that day, of course. We have to say that. And then by the 5th and the 6th, 7th, and 8th, you'll find that Jupiter and Venus are even farther apart from each other, but you still see Mars and Saturn kind of in the same positions as well. So this lineup is still going on now. It's nice to have this for quite some time in the early morning. And one thing I didn't have a chance to kind of mention in previous episodes is the angle of this alignment does depend on your latitude. So let me pull up our location dialog box here. We'll move it over here to the left. And of course we have our location set to Daytona Beach where our museum sits, close to 30 degrees north latitude, or actually just under. And if I change our position here, we'll see the difference with where these planets sit. So if we go really far north here, let's just say we go to Canada here in North America, now you see these 4 planets line up at a lower angle in relation to the horizon. So here in Canada, a lot farther north, Venus, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn just kind of skim over the horizon there. But let's say we continue changing our position as we go farther south here. Let's see where the positions of those planets lie. So now as we do so, you'll see they're almost straight up in the sky as we get pretty close to the equator here. And if you continue going into the southern hemisphere, you'll find they're pretty much straight up in the sky. And there's been some really neat pictures of folks capturing the planets kind of lined up with the Earth, and then the planets all lined up in a straight line. Just depends on where you go. So as you kind of change your position, you kind of see where the planets lie, and that's mostly due to latitude and not longitude. So that should remain the same. The time of day, of course, will change if we change our position here to another part of the world. So if we kind of move back in time here and we look here, you can see it should be relatively the same here if you're at the same latitude. But going back to Daytona where our museum sits, you can see the angle that these planets kind of cut across the sky. And no matter where you are in the world, you do have some view of these planets, and it's kind of nice to see the difference depending on where you go. So this is still great. We'll talk more about it later, about where you're going to expect these planets moving around. But this week, you'll find Jupiter and Venus kind of separating away from each other. Now, interestingly, the radiant for this upcoming peak of the Eta Aquarid's meteor shower actually is located where those planets are in the early morning, because right now, those planets are situated near the constellation of Aquarius, the water bear. It's actually one of the dimmer and harder to see constellations, but of course, very famous as one of the signs of the zodiac since it lies along the ecliptic. And the planets generally lie on the ecliptic as well, since that's the plane of our solar system. And the Eta Aquarid is actually named after the position of a star inside of Aquarius called Eta Aquarid, which is this star right there. And this is one of a group of stars that forms the jar that Aquarius is pouring the water out from in this celestial depiction, and the radiant point is nearest that star in the constellation, hence the name, the Eta Aquarids. And of course, as we've mentioned before, you don't need to see the radiant point to actually see the meteors. It just shows you where the meteors radiate from in the sky. Of course, you'll see them across the entire sky, but generally you can trace them back to this position here. This meteor shower generally runs from about April 19th through May 28th, and usually the peak of it is in early May, as we see here. So really, this is the night of May 5th or the morning of May 6th. That's going to be your better opportunity. Usually the mornings for many meteor showers is better, either between midnight and dawn. In this case, probably from about midnight until maybe about 4 or 5 in the morning before any of the light from the sun appears. The good news is the moon won't really interfere. There is a thin crescent earlier in the evening, but that will have set by the time the real peak of this is occurring in the west. So that would be kind of nice to not have the moon out. And if it's clear, you might have a chance to see up to 10 to 20 meters per hour on a really good opportunity, sometimes 50 or 60 per hour. And what we're finding are the little bits of debris, ice and rock from Comet Halley, and its debris trail is what we're moving through at this time of the year, causing the meteor shower in early May. Of course, Halley's comet is arguably one of the most famous comets in our solar system that takes about 76 years to go around the sun, so it's actually considered a short period comet. That is actually short. Any short period comet is a less than 200-year orbit, so Halley's comet fits in that category. And we saw it in our sky last in 1986. It actually wasn't as amazing as we had hoped, but that's just the way comets are. We always say they're very unpredictable. And the next time we have an opportunity to see this comet is in 2061. And this comet, of course, is named after the famous English astronomer Edmund Halley, who actually did not discover the comet or the first one to see it. We've actually seen Comet Halley for thousands of years. It's very well known, but he was the first to calculate it and actually predict that it's the same comet that was coming back, because at the time we didn't know every time we saw this comet if it was the same one. And using actually Newton's calculations not long before, about 1705, Edmund Halley was able to predict when this comet would reoccur, and he was correct. And so eventually the comet was named after him. And not only does it produce the Eta Aquarids in May, actually there's another one you might know, the Orionids in the fall, are also from Halley's comet, because we're going through a different part of the stream at that time of the year. So it's kind of neat that we're intersecting the debris field of Comet Halley a couple different times throughout the year. So we're hoping that the Eta Aquarids this year, between evening of May 5th and really best the morning of May 6th, which is Friday morning, will be really nice. Especially the moon really won't be a factor. And hopefully in your location, you'll have a really clear sky and decent weather. If you miss it on that particular morning, maybe the morning of the 5th or even the morning of the 7th as well could be just as good. So hopefully either way, we have a decent showing. Now, as we take a look at celestial highlights for the month of May here in 2022, there's not a lot of specific things going on, but there are a couple really big celestial moments that we are very excited to talk about. And one regards the moon. So on the evening of May 15th and the morning of the 16th, we have a full moon. And the full moon in May is called typically the flower moon, because we have a lot of May flowers blooming, at least here in the northern hemisphere, and it kind of makes sense for the moon to be tied to the blooming flowers at this time of the year. But not only do we have a full moon, the evening of that 15th and the early morning of the 16th, we also have a total lunar eclipse, and this is going to be really nice. This lunar eclipse will be seen from much of North America, and of course this is when the moon passes into Earth's shadow. It darkens, eventually turning red as Earth's shadow is refracting light from the sun around it, casting a red glow onto the moon, and then the moon moves past that and brightens back up into a nice bright full moon. So it really changed the sky in amazing ways. It goes from kind of a bright, naturally light polluted sky to a darker, less light polluted sky, and then back to it being bright again. And this is going to be really nice for those in North America, especially on the East Coast. All of South America will have a great view of this, and the southeastern parts of the Pacific, and a good portion of the Atlantic Ocean as well. And this map does show you the locations where all the eclipse is visible, or if the eclipse is visible during moonrise or moon set. So just to give you a quick preview of what to expect, I'll show this to you in Stellarium here, and there's a couple different moments to highlight, especially the beginning of the eclipse, greatest eclipse, and then when it starts to end here. So this is at 9:41 local time. This is Eastern Daylight Time here with the moon, a nice full moon rising out of the east here. And we'll just zoom in a little bit more to give us a better view of this. And as we do, let's just focus on the moon and speed through time. And as we do here, when we hit 10:27 our local time here on the East Coast, and of course you have to adjust depending on where you are, that's when the main part of the eclipse, when the moon starts entering what's called the umbra. That is Earth's darker part of the shadow. And that's when the Earth, moon, and sun are lined up really nicely, pretty much in a straight line. That's called a syzygy. It's really awesome. So we'll continue into about 10:27. Look carefully on the moon here. You're actually going to see a little bit of shadow start to occur actually on this side right there. You can see the curvature of Earth's shadow. That does tell you that Earth is round. It's a nice reminder of that. And then as we move forward in time here, eventually we're going to get to 12:12. And that's when the moon is in greatest eclipse. So we're trying to get there just nicely here, right about there. It's kind of right in the middle. And so that lasts for some time here, and that's when the moon really turns that dark shade of red. So it takes some time for that to happen. It goes from kind of a very dark coloration on the moon, and then it starts to turn more red as those brighter portions of the moon get immersed in Earth's shadow. That continues on, and then it starts to end at 12:53. We'll actually start to see this side go back into light again. There's that brightness there. You're going to see the reddening kind of quickly diminish here. And then from there, you'll see a partial lunar eclipse until about 1:55 local time, and it's complete, at least the moon out of the umbra. At different times, it does go through the penumbra, which is the lighter shadow, but it's hard to tell the difference between a penumbra covered moon and just a regular full moon. It's when the moon goes into the umbra is the main part of the eclipse that is noticeable. And then the moon just kind of goes about its evening like nothing ever happens. So that's going to be great. A full moon, of course, a full moon has to occur for a lunar eclipse to occur. So we have that total flower lunar eclipse on May 15th and 16th. For this month as well, I'd like to give you an update on where you can expect the planets to be for the rest of the month, at least after the first week of May that we've already covered. And as we move through the month here, starting on Monday, May 9th, we can again find Venus, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn kind of nicely spaced. You'll find Saturn's a little farther than the other three, but it's still kind of nicely lined up there. So we're just going to go one morning at a time here. And as we do so, you're going to see where the planets end up. You'll find that Jupiter and Mars are actually getting closer and closer to each other as Venus is a little farther away. Then the moon by the 21st, 22nd of this month will start to approach. This is on the 22nd. That morning when the moon is near Saturn, we'll continue on here to the 23rd, 24th, and then by the 25th, you'll see the moon pretty close to Jupiter and Mars, and the moon will be an even thinner crescent. Then the moon will kind of head towards Venus here as we get to the 26th and 27th, kind of move past it, turning into a thin crescent. And there you see Jupiter and Mars really close, getting to conjunction as well. And then we'll move on to the 28th, 29th, and 30th. And that's when on the 29th and 30th of May, when Jupiter and Mars are really close. That's going to be a really nice conjunction to see those two planets in the sky. Very small, rocky planets with a very big gas giant in one field of view, which would be great. And then we'll continue on here into May 31st, right at the end before we hit June. And you can see the planets are spread farther apart, but it's kind of nice to be able to see them still sort of in this vicinity in the morning. And also, since Saturn is so much higher up now, you'll actually be able to see it earlier and earlier as we go through the month. So that would be nice, so you don't have to stay up as late to see Saturn in the sky. So still have a continuation of this great morning lineup of planets through the month of May. And lastly, let's take a look at the constellations and stars that we can generally see for the month of May as well. And finally, at this time of the year, if we're looking to the west, you now see Orion set in this part of the sky, especially when it gets dark out. So you can see one star left of Orion, the right shoulder Betelgeuse, that is still kind of hanging on in the sky, but most of the constellation is gone by this time of the year, so we can say farewell to the great hunter. And if you look very low in the southwest as well, you see the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, one of Orion's hunting dogs, and the brightest star in the night sky still hanging on as well. So that will be getting very low at this time of the year. You still have a little more time to see the leftover winter constellation of the Gemini twins that we can see here. So we have a little time left with those two brothers, along with Auriga the Charioteer and this bright star Capella off to the northwest, and the small hunting dog that belongs with Orion, and that is Procyon the star and Canis Minor right there. So those are your still leftover winter constellations that are a little more towards the spring sky, so they hang out for a little bit longer. And then speaking more of that spring sky that we can find here, looking pretty much straight up, but now starting to move slightly west, are the stars of Leo the Lion. So still dominating the sky at this time of the year. There's the head of Leo, the sickle shape that we know so well, and the brightest star in Leo, Regulus, that we find with this great constellation, still moving across the sky, the largest constellation you can find, and that is of Hydra. I'll click on the brightest star inside of it, Alphard, that we find there. As we kind of move more to the tail of Hydra here, we'll see those great spring constellations that are a lot higher in the sky towards the east in the evening, like the star Spica that we find there, part of Virgo the Maiden, and that star Spica being the ear of wheat star. That's pretty well known. And also the brightest star in our northern hemisphere sky is now really dominating, especially now that Sirius is so low. Now this star Arcturus really kind of takes over as the brightest star you can see in the sky at the moment. It's about fourth in brightness out of all the stars, but for the northern hemisphere and for this time of year, it is the dominating bright star in the sky, part of Boötes, the herdsman that we find right there. And we always like to mention the Big Dipper's handle kind of arcing to Arcturus. There's the Big Dipper, a great time to see this asterism right there, the Great Bear as it's part of Ursa Major. There's the rest of the constellation. And of course the Big Dipper pointing to the North Star Polaris, which is part of the Little Dipper, or Ursa Minor, the smaller bear in the sky. So those are also nice, those great spring constellations. We're getting, of course, closer to summertime as we head to the end of May, but again, it's still spring. So these are your most dominating stars and constellations, while you see the really famous winter stuff almost completely go away towards the west. So a lot still to enjoy at this time of year when it comes to the stars and constellations. Hey, we made it through another edition of our Sky Tonight program. As always, we really appreciate your support and thank you for tuning in. And if you're in the area in Daytona Beach, please stop by the Museum of Arts and Sciences and check out a show in our Loman Planetarium. We got so many great programs going on in there. We're really cooking in the planetarium, so we'd love to see you there in person if you're in this area. So if you want any more information about what we're doing in the planetarium and throughout the rest of the museum, or even on social media, please check online on our website and our various social media channels. With that, we hope to see you back here again. I have to say, May the 4th be with you, and of course, happy stargazing.